So do you remember that little conference that we had around GDC time? And it was pretty obvious after we got into it, the road to PlayStation 5, that it was mostly for developers and it was going to be something more behind closed doors for GDC. And they decided just, hey, we'll just stream it to everyone and anyone who's interested can watch this. Well, in that presentation, something interesting was mentioned when Mark Cerny was talking about the SSD, and it had to do with kind of the overall bloat that we've seen with these games.
Another strategy for increasing effective read speed is to make big sequential chunks of data. For example, we might group all the data together for each city block. That removes most of the seeks, and the streaming gets faster. But there's a downside too, which is that frequently used data is included in many chunks and therefore is on the hard drive many, many times. Marvel's Spider-Man uses this strategy, and though it works very well for increasing the streaming speed, there's a massive duplication as a result. Some of the objects like mailboxes or news racks are on the hard drive 400 times. What I'm describing here are things that cramp a creative director's style. Either level design gets a little bit boring in places, or the data is duplicated so many times that it no longer fits on the Blu-ray disc.
So you mentioned that the hard drive inside of these systems are slower, the current ones, like the PS4, so in order to save time for loading or make things even possible with them, a lot of things like lampposts, for example, or Spider-Man will just be copied several times over the course of the files themselves, building up, of course, the file size. So to hear that that's not the case so far, especially with 2 games that have been announced right now, and we have more information because we're, well, less than 2 months out from when they are going to release. Turns out file sizes are not really getting that much smaller, at least for now. Might even be getting larger. As always, guys, enjoy the video. Make sure you like it down below to help out. And if you're new to the SpawnWave Plus channel, make sure you're subscribed. So let's go over to the PlayStation website where they listed information for Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, the Ultimate Launch Edition. That is the one that will also come with a remaster of Spider-Man, of course. So I will be grabbing this one along with the PS5 day one. Excited for Miles Morales, and you know what? I am interested in the remaster because it sounds like they have added, interesting stuff here. So that's great. But if we go down here, all the way to the bottom, of course, hidden all the way at the bottom, right? You can see it says here, 1 player and 105 gigabytes minimum is required for this. So I assume it's going to have to take the disc in, and then, of course, install to that SSD inside. Now, 825 gigabytes. That's not a ton when games are going to be 105 gigabytes. Now, keep in mind, this would be 2 games, right? Spider-Man from the PS4 and then Miles Morales also on the PS4 now I think about it. But you get my point. It's 2 different games that are going to be packed in here. Well, Miles Morales by itself, the game, is 50 gigabytes. So it's still fairly large, to me about the same size as Spider-Man, and of course that doesn't include any day one patches or patches that come in the future that could continue to add to it. But now let's go over to a game that is developed specifically for the PlayStation 5 from Sony. This would be Blue Point, Demon's Souls, right? Very, very excited for this one too. I'm sure most of you are. It's exciting to see how it looked. The fact that we're getting this Demon's Souls remake, Blue Point does some fantastic work. Very excited. But if we go down here to the bottom on this one, all the way, of course, all the way at the bottom, fine print, all of that, 66 gigabytes. Well, that's not really any smaller than these previous ones. Now, the biggest thing here you have to remember is we're going to have fidelity pushed, of course, which means texture work, all this stuff will get larger in file size because we'll go for 4K, maybe even 8K textures across the board. It's possible. These systems are technically capable of doing 8K, mostly because the HDMI ports on them will allow it. Don't know if the systems themselves will, although I'm sure, you know what, if I was an indie developer and I knew the visuals in my game weren't going to push the system that much at 4K and I might be able to kind of squeak out 8K, I might do it just to say it's an 8K and advertise it. But if you get to that point, yes, you will have file sizes that are significantly larger than what was on the PS4, despite going to this magical SSD that Mark Cerny was telling us about. Yes, it's just because they're going to continue pushing the boundaries with these different games, which leaves us in a weird spot for like the PS5 digital version and the Xbox Series X to a degree, even though that has that 1 terabyte. When you start getting these things into perspective, and right now you may have already bought a USB hard drive for your Xbox One X or your PS4, and now you start to think, wow, I'd have to get one of those memory cards for the Xbox. or I'd have to get one of those NVMe drives for the PlayStation 5. Yeah, things start getting a bit expensive. Now keep in mind, 825 gigabytes doesn't sound like a lot, but you're not getting that. You're going to get less than that. I would anticipate anywhere from 50 to 75 gigabytes less, because you will have some of that partition for the OS itself. You could end up with 775 to 750 gigabytes of usable space on that PlayStation 5. Now, take into account that day one, you might get Demon's Souls, you might get the Spider-Man Miles Morales Ultimate Edition, all of that with the remastered Spider-Man, and all of a sudden, like a quarter of your drive is gone. Makes me wonder what's going to happen with Call of Duty, right? I mean, you think they're pushing it. Wait till Call of Duty starts dropping their file sizes on the PS5 and even the Xbox Series X. It'll get out of hand pretty quick with that as well. But unfortunately, the one thing I was really hoping would get figured out would have been these file sizes, and it doesn't seem like it's going to really happen, unfortunately. Some games, of course, do it better than others, but I would anticipate that you'll see these developers use those 100 gigabyte discs that have been introduced by Sony now for the PlayStation 5, and I'm sure the Series X will use them as well. It's not going to get much smaller for file size at this point. So unfortunately, that hope and dream is kind of dashed now, seeing 66 gigabytes worth of Demon's Souls be there day one. But let me know what you guys think about this situation down below with file sizes on the PlayStation 5 not really going in the direction we were hoping, as Mark Cerny was trying to tell us about. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.